Dave Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Berges.
Is there something impacting your relationship? Even though the years when your kids are small is a beautiful time of life filled with magical moments, it can also be a time when couples struggle to stay connected. After all, your kids need a lot of your time, but so does your business or your career. And making time for self-care is hard, so your health and well-being suffers. And date night? Well, that seems like a distant dream. So instead of days filled with loving connection, there are moments of tension, stress, and worry. But what if there was help to get you through these years? A solution built with young parents in mind. One with no difficult concepts to master. One that's fun and gives immediate results. And fits seamlessly into your schedule no matter how busy you get. A solution to make sure you stay connected. We're offering you support to keep your connection strong. The Connection app for couples. Click the link below to learn more. We're making together better so your moments stay magical.
Hey there, friends. Ashley Berges live today. And today I'm talking about feeling overwhelmed, about how we can feel overwhelmed in a lot of different situations. And one of the things that I felt is that with technology, 24/7 news, the internet, social media, and the list goes on, how do we break away from feeling overwhelmed? How do we break away from feeling sad from that overwhelming feeling? And I think that a lot of times with the opportunities that we have now with technology and seeing the whole world and being able to every single moment of every single day hearing the entire news from around the world, or at least what we are being shared with, it can be an overload of news, right? We see the news about folks that are being victimized or being abused. We see animal abuse. We see, the situations with our planet and the turmoil and tragedy on our planet as well. We watch the plight of the abused and we see the aftermath of the violence. But at what point do we deal with the tragedy? And what point do we deal with understanding how we feel about the situation? And that's something that I find is inherently difficult, and even more so in our technology, because I figure that our technology, it's good until it makes us panic. It's good until it overwhelms us. Today I had a situation where I was on Facebook and I was looking at some Facebook posts early this morning, and I came across a post that really kind of put me in a tailspin, and it was about animal cruelty, and it involved animal cruelty in Korea, and I had no idea about what was happening. And you can probably Google some stuff up if you'd like to. I don't really want to go into all that exactly, just because I think a lot of us are big-time animal lovers, and I don't want to paint that picture for you today. However, how do we deal with those types of tragedies? How do we deal with seeing these types of stories? And then more so, how do we take this in, process it, live our life on a daily basis, but still come up with some sort of solution to make some of these wrongs right? And I think this is a big question to ask ourselves, and this is something that we need to kind of focus on and think about here as to being able to live our true life, being able to deal with the impact of the news, and be able to seem to find some sort of solution with some of these issues. Joining me here out of Canada, Arnold Smith. Arnold Smith is the creator of the Connection app. And the Connection app is a really neat app for, folks who are, couples or married, especially to be able to make that connection even stronger. And so definitely I think his perspective is necessary here, because how hard is it to really deal with, our own personal lives and our own careers and our own wants and desires, on top of, if we're in a relationship, trying to help them, trying to grow that relationship, trying to be inspired in that, and dealing with the outside world and the tragedies and feeling overwhelmed. Arnold, great to have you today.
Hi, Ashley. Thanks for having me on.
I think it's interesting. I talked to you this morning, and I share with you, the plight of the dogs, and I didn't have any clue. And I had a friend of mine that's rescuing these dogs out of Korea, and they rescued 2 of them recently, and it's taken about 4 or 5 days for these little guys to come out of their little cage. And they're very scared because they've been beaten, and it's really a horrible situation. But I was watching that, just play out in just some pictures on Facebook, and it really, really hurt me, you know. And I know that a lot of us are feeling, you know, we got a lot on our plates. We're feeling down. We're feeling depressed. A lot of us are going through tragedy in our own life, you know, whether it's the loss of a parent, the loss of a spouse, maybe going through a divorce, the loss of a career. There's a lot of things going on, and so it's hard to be able to pack all that stuff in a suitcase and carry it every day. I mean, what are some of your thoughts on this subject matter?
Well, I think what you said was so true about how, you know, when that kind of stuff happens, how it really impacts your relationship. And that's really, you know, oftentimes, you know, whether it be your work or your health or world events, when you're stressed, it's really hard to connect with the people you care about. And you get kind of locked into this thought pattern that just doesn't feel good. So, I mean, and it's like you say, it could be as easy as, you know, harmlessly chasing or checking your social media and seeing something that just really bothers you, and how does that, and it can stick with you, and like you said, something like that is really painful, and if you don't have good strategies for really getting over that, it can kind of take you out for the whole day.
It's true, and I've had some clients that have dealt with it themselves where it's hard for them to get out of bed. You know, they turn on the news, and that's one thing that you know, there's some clients out there that, you know, I have to literally put my foot down and advise them to really limit their media intake. But I mean, at the same time, I want them to know what's happening, but it's hard sometimes when it's hard to process those emotions, and I think sometimes there's a difficulty in processing emotions, especially when we're processing a lot of emotions at one time.
It's true, and you know, sometimes we don't even notice that we're upset. You know, you're kind of going through, and then you've seen something, and you might bark at some of your kids or your partner, or you just might be feeling kind of like down. And sometimes we just go through, you know, it could be hours, and we go, wait a minute, like something happened that is stealing my vitality. And it's that if you can be aware of that, that's when you have the opportunity to take an action. But it's sometimes, you know, it's even just hard to notice. You know, we're so bombarded with negativity sometimes in our lives that it could just feel normal. When in fact, you know, like you want to kind of feel happy and joy-filled most of the time. And if that's not the case, you want to be able to do something about it.
That's so true, and I feel like a lot of times we feel like our hands are tied. You know, we feel like our hands are tied. We feel like we don't have the ability to do anything, and I think that's where it's critical and crucial. Is that I feel overwhelmed when I see a tragedy happen, where I feel like, you know, I would like to be able to help. And one of the things that I've realized that we can't do everything. I know that. I understand that. But I think that many of us, many of the folks watching right now, including myself, and probably you, Arnold, as well, you know, you see some of these stories and you just, you know, your heart goes out to that person and you feel like, God, if there's just something I could do or something I could help them, or how to help that plight. But it seems like there's so many of those. I wish I could help that, or I wish I could do this. And it's like, you know, it's hard to, I guess, sufficiently stay in our own lane and do what we do to the best of our ability, right? And still have that emotional connection with the plight of the other person.
It's true, you know, and a lot of people out there are sad when they look at the challenges that are facing the world, and we can kind of get locked into this imagining that the future is not going to work out. And when you are in this place where the future isn't going to work out, it often feels like, well, there's nothing I can do about that. The problems are so big. And so it really helps to kind of bring it back to, you know, your sphere of influence. I mean, what can you do as an individual to affect change? And a large part of that is, you know, really being happy and healthy yourself. I mean, it all starts from there, because without that, you've got nothing to give. And so, you know, it's in some ways comforting when you're looking at these massive problems in the world to think, okay, the first thing is I need to take care of myself so that I can make a difference for one person. And if each person does that, then, you know, we're starting to solve the world's problems. But if we keep it on this massive scale, then we feel so impotent. We feel like there's nothing that we can do. And that's the worst feeling in the world. And it can really send us on a downward spiral.
Yeah, I actually did a trial actually one time at one point when back, and I think many of you might have been around for September 11th, 2001. Some of you were too young, some of you didn't see it, but I remember watching that play out, and I'm just completely, wow, I can't believe this is happening. And that was an interesting feeling because I think that there were so many people at one given time feeling completely overwhelmed. And I feel that nowadays, you know, obviously we haven't had one of those types of catastrophes in this country since then, thank goodness, but I feel that it's like every day there's small catastrophes. Every single day we're seeing what's happening in here, or Korea, or seeing what's happening, you know, in all these different, you know, places around the world. And that can be really devastating to the individual too, especially the empath, especially the deep feelers, the deep, you know, the people that actually do care, those empaths out there, you know, who really feel, and those deep feeling folks out there, and those deep thinking folks that really care. I think that's what's so critical and crucial, is to safeguard. You can be an empath, but to some degree, and you can feel, and you can have empathy, and you can care, and you can send love, and you can try to figure out solution. But there's also a point of trying to safeguard yourself so that you can dedicate that energy that you need to creating at least a world around you that you can touch in a positive way, in a positive light. Because I think as an empath, when you get feeling overwhelmed, that's when kind of the wheels come off and you're unable to really focus on the things that you have somewhat control over.
Yeah, and the reality is that getting depressed, or, you know, is not going to help anybody. You know, if as a society we get depressed and we fail to take any action, well, then the world is just going to go, our worst dreams are going to come true. And so it really comes down to how do we as individuals get ourselves out of that funk? How do we make sure that we have the energy to take action? And I know that, you know, we talked about as people who have a lot of big things going on, you know, we're not immune to all of the trials and tribulations of life. You know, they come up all the time, but, you know, you still got to show up. You got to go on stage and you perform. You got to do your speech. You got to, you know, there's no out for you know, when you're up to a big game. And so you have to figure out ways of getting out of that negative cycle of really finding a way to counteract the negativity that tends to overwhelm you. I mean, what is your favorite strategy to do that?
Well, that's a good question. When we return, I'm going to be giving some of those strategies here in just a bit, some things that I have kind of fallen into, some things that I've found on my own, some research that I've done on how to overcome some of this stuff, and really how to really focus on our personal power. When we return, Arnold and I will be continuing the conversation on how to slow down and stop feeling so overwhelmed, and how to really take your power back, and also at the same time find your passion. Stay tuned, because we'll be back here in 2 shakes. You can't miss the newest show, The Artist Perspective, sponsored by Art for Your Cause. To learn more about Art for Your Cause, go to artforyourcause.com. Art for Your Cause helps artists and charities by bringing artists and their work and charities together to be able to raise money for your favorite charities while still paying the artists for their work. To learn more about The Artist Perspective, go to theartistperspective.tv and watch our first episode featuring world-renowned photographer Jeremy Locke. Welcome back, guys. Ashley Berges here. Great to have you all, friends and family, to the channel. I'm glad to have you watching today. And today we've been talking about feeling overwhelmed. You know, just today, actually, I was reading something on Facebook this morning, and I know many of y'all do that too. You get on social media, you're looking at social media, you're looking at your friends' comments, you're looking at your friends' stories, and you have a few minutes in the morning, and sometimes you just have that really uplifting story that really just gets to you, and you're like, wow, that makes me feel awesome. People doing good things, right? Well, I saw a really uplifting story, but it had the predication behind it that opened my mind to something that I didn't even know existed. And it was so much pain and so horrible, okay? And it was good that this person's doing their good deed to make those changes, but it's like there's a million animals that are in this abuse, and yes, this man has adopted 2 of these animals, but you see how, to me, it felt so overwhelming. And I know that many of y'all are in the same boat. You know, you're living your life, you're trying to take care of your kiddos, you're trying to take care of your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, you're trying to take care of yourself, trying to keep your job, you're doing all this stuff, taking care of your dog, your cat, your bird, you got all that stuff going on, the house, the car, everything. And then on top of that, you see tragedy on the news 24/7 in different countries, different places in our country, right down the street from your house every single day. And it's like, what do we do to try to not only process that, but what do we do to try to help? And then what do we do to try to help ourselves? And joining me here remotely out of Canada, Arnold Smith. Arnold is the creator of the Connection app. And Arnold, you know, we were just talking before the break, and we're trying to make sure the audio is a little better, guys. We took a little bit of time just to try to get the audio better. But, you know, we were just talking about things that we can do to try to take back our power, things that we can do to try to deal with these situations. And one of the things that I figured out, you asked me this question right before the break, Arnold, was I have to take an inventory of my emotions. And that's something that I have to figure out. When I see something very tragic, or I start digesting something that it's overwhelming to me, what I do is I take a step back and I begin to really take inventory of how am I feeling, you know. And I really, and I know that sounds wild for people, but when you see something depressing or devastating, I'm just telling y'all, psychologically speaking, physiologically speaking, your body is interpreting it a certain way, whether your heart is racing, whether you feel a little nausea, whether you're feeling dizzy, whether you're feeling just, you know, sick to your stomach, or whether you just start feeling that kind of isolationism or sadness. You got to get right with taking that inventory. And that's the first thing that I've done, because I say, wait, hold up, Ashley, hold up, time out. How am I feeling? Okay. And what can I do to make the situation that's making me feel that way better? What can I do? What can I focus on? And that's one of the first things I do, is taking that inventory of my emotions. What do you think about that, Arnold?
Well, I think it's such an important step, you know, and just knowing that you're feeling, you know, overwhelmed is, you know, that awareness is what you need in order to take action. And, you know, whenever I'm looking at the world and worrying about the big world problems, one of the things that really helps me is just to say, okay, well, there are other people that are working on that problem. There are, you know, there's 7 billion people in the world, and so there's somebody who's working on that problem. What is the one that I'm working on? What is the thing that I'm contributing? And it might not be directly with the thing that I'm currently worried about, but then it brings me back to where I have a sphere of control, and I feel like I get a little bit of power back, and that helps me to feel a lot better and kind of get rid of that overwhelm. At least that's the first step.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I feel is that inventory of emotions. So guys, if you're watching the news, one of the other things that I've realized too when it comes to news intake, and I'm not just talking about world news, I'm talking about local news as well, is that, you know, I have to really watch how much intake that I take in. Okay, and it was interesting the other night. I don't watch a lot of it, because I think that many of you out there understand being empathic. You know, being someone that actually, you know, feels certain things. The more you feel, the more in depth you feel, the more it is harder to cut those things out. and to really just focus on what you need to focus on. And so, and the other thing too is that a lot of times with the news, unfortunately, there is no solution. And one of the things that I've realized in my life is that, you know, for example, this thing that was on Facebook, the only reason I read it is because the man that was doing it was offering solution. And that's something that I think is so critical and crucial, guys, is that if you're watching stuff, I want you to be watching things that there is some solution. I want you to watch something where you feel more empowered than tiny and small. And that's something that I feel has really changed in my course in the last 12 years. And it's something that I really tell my clients too, is that, you know, we're trying to get solidly, we're trying to get empowered, we're trying to live that true life by having those proper boundaries and being super mindful of every moment of our life and super mindful of the content that we read. In my book, The 10-Day Challenge to Live Your True Life, I talk about how what you read and what you see is so important, because you can't unread something and you can't unsee something. So you really want to think about how much time you want to dedicate to a news outlet or something like that where you really don't know what's going to come in the spear of your thought.
It's so true, you know, and it's amazing how when you allow outside sources to really impact what's going on internally, how much that can impact your life. So I agree with you. Limiting, you know, negative inputs really makes a difference. That makes it easier to stay positive. And you know what? But at the end of the day, we both live in amazing countries with so much privilege. And I think getting back to what we do have in our lives and being grateful for that is one of the great ways to is a real simple way to kind of combat that negativity when the world you feel like the world is going to, I'm trying to think of a good word here, but it's going back. Then, you know, that it gives you a chance to kind of escape that.
No, I agree. It's like, I think you were looking for hell in a handbasket, but we can say hell. No, but, you know, but my thing is that you're right. And I think one of the other things too is that I'm a fundamentalist when it comes to working to really focus your time and energy in things that empower you. And it might not always be the most positive of subject matters, but things that empower you to take that skill set that you have that nobody else has and start using it for the good. And one of the things that I think you can do is find that passion project. I think all of us have a passion project, or if we don't have a passion project, find one and really dedicate some time in it and do it right, because we can't do a million things. We can't help the Syrians. We can't go help over in Hong Kong. We can't help the animals in Korea. We can't help, I mean, like, there's a lot going on. I mean, you only have a certain amount of hours in the day. So if you focus on one thing that's really important to you and you do it well, then you can look at that as your benchmark of what you're helping in this world, what you're creating on this planet. And that's my big time solution for this whole thing, is that I think we have to find our passion project. You know, I mean, I think, Arnold, you found your passion project by helping people connect. I mean, you lost your parents, you know, at such an early age. It was so tragic. I think that because out of that tragedy, just like tragedy in general, out of that tragedy comes this phenomenal desire to help people. And I think that people have to find out of the tragedy, out of the flames, as a phoenix flies out of the flames, what is it that you want to help? Who do you want to help? And I think that's what is so important.
Yeah, I heard a quote this morning. It's Napoleon Hill. And in every adversity we face, there is the seed of equal or greater benefit. And you can look at that from a global perspective as well. And it's sometimes hard to step back and see it that, like, what could possibly be the benefit? But, you know, the moving of hearts, the you know, engaging people in action. You know, sometimes we can't see what the benefit is, but in every adversity we personally face, there is a seed of greater or equal benefit. At least that's Napoleon Hill's perspective.
I like Napoleon Hill. I think Napoleon Hill is good. He had a book out called Think and Grow Rich. Obviously, this was written quite some time ago. And I read it multiple times. And it was interesting because another thing that you can do is you can find like-minded people that feel like you do that want to get involved. Some people call that a mastermind. You can call that whatever it is. I think nowadays they've gotten crazy with this mastermind concept, because a mastermind was supposed to be people coming together to help create something or facilitate or foster something, right? And so that's what it originally means. It wasn't to be paying, hundreds of thousands of dollars to join a mastermind. It was to actually facilitate an organization of people that felt the same about the same stuff that mattered. And so that's an interesting concept too. And so maybe finding other like-minded people that care about the same things. If they care about, the animal issues in Korea, or they care about the refugees over here, or whatever it is, or they care about folks at the border, or they care about whatever. Is like finding some folks that feel the same way, because I know that when we act with other people, it's like it kind of fuels and inspires us to even do better. And I think it also puts that flame under your butt to continue to do things even when you feel not your best, even when you feel like you're kind of overwhelmed. And I think that can be helpful. But one of the things that I do say in a caveat is don't wait for other people to do things. If you got other people that want to help, great, but don't wait and don't stop your fire. Don't put out your fire, your flame of that if other people aren't going. You just start going and you'll find other people that want to join along. And I think that's key.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we know that from research is two of the best ways to kind of get out of your own personal negative downward spiral is to be around people, to work with people. Like you say, to be around like-minded people, because it is in that relationship we get elevated. And the other thing is actually when you do something nice. And so when you're doing something nice for someone else, they may not feel what you're doing, but you feel it. And a lot of the really interesting research is that when you're the person doing the generous act, you actually get more benefit than the person who's having the act done to them. And so when you can get together with a like-minded group of people and actually work to make a difference for something you're passionate about, it's one of the best ways to make sure you elevate yourself out of negativity and stay positive.
That's positive stuff. When we return, we'll be talking a little bit more about what you can do. We'll be giving you some more tips and tricks to help out as well. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, don't worry about it. We're going to help you to feel less overwhelmed here by the end of the show. So stay tuned. We'll be gone for just a couple of minutes, and we'll be back to give more solution. We'll be back in just 2 shakes. Hey there, friends. I'm glad you're catching the live broadcast of Live Your True Life Perspectives. I've created my very own Patreon page. You can go to Patreon and you can check out my page. The link is right here. It's an amazing platform because I'm able to offer more stuff there, different stuff than I am on the Live Your True Life program, as well as on my YouTube channel. You've probably seen my YouTube channel. We put up new video content every week. And we have a lot of great content on there. But on the Patreon page, I'm able to go a step further. I'm offering group coaching sessions, private coaching sessions, as well as access to exclusive content, like the Celebrity Perspective Season 1. I won a Telly Award for that this year. You can watch all episodes right here on Patreon. I'm offering you the exclusive chance to come on the radio with me, to be live on Live Your True Life Perspectives, nationally syndicated radio show, to talk about yourself, to talk about your amazing life, and to inspire the Live Your True Life listeners. When you become a member of my Patreon page, you are directly supporting me to help other people to live their true life. I look forward to seeing you on Patreon. Let's inspire one another.
Hi, my name is Reginald Harvey, and I'm a wellness champion. I just published the medical memoir Anatomy of a Patient to inspire those affected directly or indirectly by a life-threatening diagnosis. Do you know or have a family member or dear friend who is suffering from catastrophic illness or debilitating disability? This is a conversation that few people are willing to have, and I want to have it with you. You can hear me on Live Your True Life Perspectives with Ashley Berges. For more information, go to reggieharvey.net.
Welcome back, guys. Ashley Berges here. Great to have you. Ladies, gentlemen, thank you so much for watching today. We've been talking about feeling overwhelmed. Sorry about the audio issues we've been having. We're going to get all that set up and really worked out. You know, all this technology and everything is always an interesting scenario, right? We have the technology, and in the technology, you're going to have some issues, and you can feel overwhelmed with the technology. Yeah, just a little play on that. But no, seriously, you know, one of the things is to find that passion project, and that's one of the things that I have really gotten into, and I've really focused on that. And I'm, you know, I have several kind of passion projects, but you know, one of the ones that I have is, you know, I really get involved with the homeless here in my city, and I actually, you know, get involved with them. I help them. I write for the newspaper with them that they actually sell. That they can actually sell and get extra spending money. I help with the organization that, you know, we get them clothing and food, and then I also help with the organization that feeds them during the day, and then during the holidays, I'll go in and I do some motivational speaking and stuff like that. But that's one of my passion projects, right? I have some other ones, and I know I said just have one, but you can have multiple ones, just as long as you don't get too overwhelmed, right? But this is something that I've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years, and so it's not like something I just decided to do and I stopped. It was something that I kept on doing, right? So that's definitely the direction of your passion project. It needs to be something that you can keep on doing and that you feel good about doing and you don't feel overwhelmed. You know, so that's one of the biggest things, and finding that and learning and growing with that, because you are an inspiration, you are wisdom, and you are love. But one of the biggest things too is that if you are an empath, I need you to kind of step back, because a lot of times as an empath, you're not feeling your own emotions. Okay, you can feel everybody else's emotions in a room. You can feel the emotions on a newscast. You can go down the street and you can feel the emotions of, you know, the homeless person, the homeless man, the homeless woman. But are you focusing a little bit on your own emotions? And that's something that I want us all to think about, because we can be holding on to a lot of stuff within ourselves. And when we see these newscasts and we see these things, that emotion comes out, but is it coming out just directly because of that story? I'm sure the story is horrible and sad and tragic, but also what's residing within yourself that we need to deal with too. And that's one of the biggest things. I've also realized that we are all Cape Crusaders to some degree, but we can only go save certain people. We have to save ourselves first. So first off, we have to save ourselves, right? We have to save ourselves. We have to do what we need in our own life. We have to participate in our life. We have to be our own hero and savior, right? And what that means is we have to treat our body and ourselves with respect. We've got to create those boundaries based on our values and belief system. We've got to respect ourselves. And in that respect and honesty and truth within that becomes an unconditional love, with the help of those boundaries, with the help of understanding ourselves, with our values, with our belief systems, with our morals, with our ethics, and creating those boundaries around that so that we won't accept certain things in our life. Because remember, when our life is in turmoil, okay, because I know some of you are living in homes where there is an abuse in the home, right? And if you are being abused, whether it's physically, emotionally, or mentally, this is not a setup for happiness. This is not a setup for joy, okay? And there comes a time that we have to figure out what can we do to make the changes in our life to stop the abuse, okay? And so some of you are going through abuse right now, and I want you to step back, and many of you actually. And I want you to step back and start analyzing your situation, because once you can safeguard yourself and get yourself to a safe place or be in a safe environment away from the abuser, then you can start thinking rationally, okay? Because until we're there, we're in full-on PTSD. You're in full CPTSD. I got some videos coming out about PTSD, CPTSD as well. Those should be coming out here in the next week or two. Definitely probably one this week and one next week. But I want you to think about that, because you don't have clarity, right, when you are in a fight or flight mode. Who has clarity? Nobody does, right? You don't know what to do. And so I want you to think about that. I want to answer a couple of questions. Any questions we have?
The first one is from Random Exploring. He says, they say, my daughter's I mean, my mom. Oops, wrong one. How and where do you get the energy when you're being abused 24/7?
And what's the name?
Random exploring.
Random exploring. How do you get the energy when you're being abused 24/7? I don't know how you do. I don't know how you do it. I mean, you know, I don't know how you get the energy. I mean, that there's a part where you got to figure out, you know, how do you get out of the situation? Okay, how do you move past the situation? Is it a critical situation where you need to find a better women's shelter, a better men's shelter to go to? Is it super critical where this person could hurt you if they found out you're leaving? Is it not that physically critical? Is it a situation, in a life situation, where you're stuck in this abusive relationship due to life situations, financial, family, marriage, kids? What I'm trying to say here is just like what I was saying just a little while. We have to figure out, we need to get to a place where we're not abused. When you are abused, you are not thinking clearly. When you are abused, you do not have the right energy to take care of the next stuff. You just don't. It's a fight or flight mode all the time. You're not thinking clearly. And if you're in constant PTSD, if you're in CPTSD or you're in PTSD all the time, that is not a place, as we know, that you can have clarity. Okay, so my advice, if you were in that situation, first off, is if you have any family and friends that you can trust, you need to tell them what you're going through, because you need to set the scene to leave this situation. You know, the second thing is to really think about what do you want in your life and how do you want to move on. And because we can't be in an abusive relationship, we can't be in an abusive environment and be able to think honestly and clearly. And I really want you to think about that. I know it's easy said than done, but every difficult thing ever done by anybody starts with the first difficult step. Okay, and that's just the way it is. And so I could go on at length for hours on this subject, but I do want you to really take consideration, ask yourself, okay, you know, what do I want in this situation? What change do I want? And what am I prepared to do to make this change? And this is something that you can only ask yourself, right? And I need you to think about that and really mull it over. And then really, I'd love you to get back with us and let us know what you're thinking and what your choices are. I hope to hear from you, and I wish you the best of luck in your situation. Next question.
Next question is from 7C9. It says, how do you differentiate what really matters, impacts the most, and what is just your feelings getting out of hand?
Okay, what really matters, and how do you figure out the difference between what really matters and your feelings just getting out of hand? Is it with regards to the news or regards to issues with the news?
They didn't say. They just, I guess, in general.
Okay, so ask the question again, sorry.
It says, how do you differentiate what really matters, impacts the most, and what is just your feelings getting out of hand?
Okay, what really matters, what impacts the most? Okay, well, yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, time. Time is your answer. You can think something really matters for 1 minute and it goes away. You can think something really matters and by the end of the day you've forgotten about it. This is something that you think about day in and day out. This is something that you cannot get away with, is what your passion project becomes. Okay, it's something that you really think about. Like when it came to the homeless folks here in town, you know, when this started years ago, I was buying sleeping bags and sticking them in my car and driving around at night, you know what I'm saying, like giving sleeping bags to people in fields and stuff and seeing if they needed food and stuff. Okay, so it wasn't something that just happened overnight. It wasn't something that I just thought about. It wasn't me seeing a story on TV and saying, oh, those poor homeless people. No, it was like, man, this really connects with me. And I've had so many conversations with so many different people who are they're down on their luck, or drugs or alcohol got in the way, or they didn't have any family or support. And, you know, they're people too. And that was a big thing for me. So as far as passion project is concerned, it's something that you think about on a constant basis. It's something that you care about. It's something that matters to you. And it's not just a fleeting moment. It's something that really matters. And it's something also that you can do something about. Okay? I don't want you to have this thing that you want to help, but you can't do anything about it because you live across the world from it, or you don't know, you know, I mean, we can always do stuff to do things. We can always help things. There's never no solution But some of the things that you might really dig into, you could actually be the person to facilitate some amazing changes and strides with it that could be really powerful, not only for the people you're helping, but also powerful for you to grow and to be even a better person than you are today, which is a great thing. We all learn to grow, and we all get better. The more we do and the more we help others, the more it helps us. Rod, is there any other questions?
We have one last one. It says, it's from Zen and Me. How do you control those emotions when you are HSP? Sometimes when things are frustrating or upsetting or confrontational, I try to talk but start crying.
Okay, and how do you do what?
It says, how do you control those emotions when you have HSP?
Oh, okay. Highly sensitive person. I understand that. When we are highly sensitive, it's very, very tough. It's a highly sensitive personality. It's very tough. And I understand it can be hard, and I can understand how you can feel like you feel like, you're sad and you cry. I mean, controlling our emotions is tough and challenging, but taking that inventory of emotions and asking yourself, when we're highly sensitive, it's okay to have emotions, but sometimes certain actions can be habit. And I want you to think about that. Sometimes our go-to can be to cry. And sometimes that's a deflection. Sometimes, and that's something I want you to think about too, is it's not always that way, but think about before you cry, okay, when you're hearing something and you're about to cry, you're about to be triggered into crying, I want you to stop right there and think about, why was I going to choose to cry right then? Why was I choosing to do that? Because I'm cool with crying. I don't have an issue with it. I think people should cry. I tried to hide my tears when I was young because I thought that was the right thing. No, it's not the right thing, right? But what I'm saying is that I want you to get on top of that emotion. I want you to get on top of, why am I crying? Why am I feel like I'm about to cry? And I want you to catch that trigger to cry. Because I want you to really look at it and say, am I triggered to cry because of the sadness of the story? Or am I triggered to cry because that's what I usually do? And I think it might be very profound information. Actually, I know it will be profound. Whatever you find out will be highly profound for you. And it'll be different for everybody. It won't be the same for anybody. It's a learned response or it's a trained response. Sometimes, it's a response that we have when we haven't filled that response with something else. Because maybe there's a more powerful response that's ready for you to take if you just catch the trigger. But you have to be aware. It's almost like, it's almost like the train. You got to be ready and aware for that trigger, and you got to be willing to see that train pass and say, why did I feel this way? Why is my trigger to do this? And I think if you start asking yourselves those deep questions, especially in the moment that it's happening, the amount of knowledge that you can begin to learn about you as a person, and you about your psyche, and you about your emotion and your heart, it's going to be some powerful stuff. And you'll get to know exactly more about your emotions. You'll understand how to control your emotions more, and you'll understand how to stand within your power more. That's a great question. Thank you. That good? Okay, guys. We're going to be back on Saturday for a live show. Check it out. I don't know what we'll be talking about, but I'll definitely put a poll out there and see if y'all have some suggestions. In the meantime, limit the amount of intake sometimes. It's not necessary to watch the news 24/7 a day. That will make you feel overwhelmed. 2, pick that one thing that you really want to change and start thinking about what you can do. Start coming up with some solutions. They can be small to begin with, but eventually they really take stride and they become absolutely massive solutions that you can be extremely proud of. And last but not least, remember, we got to get right with ourselves as much as we can in our own life. We got to eliminate the negativity, the abuse, the anguish. We got to eliminate that from our life so that we can see things ultra clear, right? If we got all this stuff going on, and we got all this drama and this angst, we're not able to focus properly on where we need to be at. Therefore, when we're unable to focus properly, our emotions are not in the right place, our head's not thinking properly, and we're not thinking mindfulness. We're thinking about what happened before or what's going to be happening in the future, not in the present moment. If you stick in the present moment, you might feel better. Mindfulness is amazing. If you haven't had a chance, check out, there's a video here on YouTube that you can check out. It was an interview that they did on my book, The 10-Day Challenge to Live Your True Life. And I really talk about mindfulness and really connecting with that and how to really find that mindfulness, but also how to stick in that mindfulness and stay in that space. It's not about getting there once or twice or 3 times. It's about sticking in there as much as possible. And it's hard because when there's negativity or there's negative stories or you see, people lost, people losing their lives or animals losing their lives, it can impact your mindfulness, right? And we start like being in the thinking mind and not in the mindful mind. And that takes us away from our true life. I hope this video and this live feed has helped you. Please tune in on Saturday. Another video is coming out. The latest video just came out on understanding opinion in this relationship. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I appreciate when you do. Thank you. And I appreciate you watching for sure. And also give us a like on this video and comment on this video on how you've dealt with feeling overwhelmed and things that you've done to really help accelerate your passion project and really focusing on what you can do instead of what you can't. Great. Can't wait to see you on Saturday, and I'll be back this time in 3 shakes.